This is Shabbos Memches, and unlike the regular Yerushalmi, we're going to go into a lot of Haggadah right now. So hold on to your seatbelts because here comes the Haggadah. We were talking about supernatural ways of healing and those type of remedies. And now the Gemara is going to go into a tangent about that. Amar Rebbe Lezer says, "Hoilchin achar shmias baskoil." If a person can go after the echo of a baskoil, baskoil we know is like an echo of divine voice, either a mala calling or a premonition of a voice that's being heard. The person doesn't hear the baskol, but he hears the echo of the baskol. So could a person go after that? Let's say a person hears the echo of a baskol to do something. Could he go after that? Is that something that he's allowed to follow? My timer. So what's the reason? So we say that he could do it. So we say, and his ears shall hear some matter from behind you saying, this is the way you walk in it. So therefore, if you hear the echo of the baskol, go ahead, follow it. Rabbi Lazar Lefainia. Rabbi Lazar entered a latrine once to relieve himself, and now we're going to see how luck was on his side. Luck or mazel, as luck is called, or probably he's trying to see how everything is hashkacha pratis. Also, if Tiyaina de Raimoye, they in a Roman general consul, he was a soldier, but he's basically in charge of the city, came in. So the big macho guy in charge of the city, Vakume Masre, and he stood him up and he said, "Get out of here." Vie Savle, and he in the Roman himself sat down where Rabbi Lazar had been sitting. So Amar Hachim said to himself, Kol Amma, for all the people present, Loy Akam Davar Nash Elali. He didn't get anyone else up. There was many other stalls he could have used, but he chose me. So therefore, less efshar da'ano nafik mike. I cannot possibly leave here. Ad nida mahavi b'soifei until I know what's going to happen at the end. In other words, there must be an ashkacha pratis reason why he chose me to get me out of my stall and for him to use it. V'havitama and kivai. There was a snake there, Shri Nafik, and it started to emerge. V'yehav le Adru Tamin, and it gave the Roman a good bite on his keister. Achas derivioi, and his intestines fell out. The Kari Eloi, Rabbi Lazar called out, the etem adam tachtecha, and I will put another person in your place. In other words, it wasn't about this. This guy was being mean to Rabbi Lazar. Poked Rabbi Lazar. So Rabbi Lazar wanted to know why was he the one who had to be humiliated and had to be the one thrown out. So the bottom line is because he was saved. This Roman took him out of his place because otherwise it would have been Rabbi Lazar's intestines all over the place. Chad Talmud min dvar kapara have nafik mekoitaya kasin. One of Bar Kapara's students was going out to cut wood. And Chamsei Chad Kitayir Chavin Pere Basre. And a fig cutter saw a serpent chasing after the student. Amarle, he says to him, Chivia Pere Basrach, a serpent is chasing after you. Shavakeva Azale Basre, the serpent diverted his attention away from the student and now went after the one who called, the fig cutter. The Kari Eloi, the Etin Adam Tachtecha. Again, the student said, and I'll put someone in your place. In other words, thank you so much for help for coming in my rescue. Now I'm safe. Garmanya Avde de Rav Yuda Nisia Napuk, a Garmanya German student, a servant of Rabbi Yehuda, the prince, went out. So what is a German servant? First of all, German did not really come into the European language vernacular until the Middle Ages. However, it's a Latin word, Germania, and that Latin word is meant for the Teutonic people. And the Teutonic tribe, the Teutonic people lived in central northern Europe at the time, the place where Germany is now, Scandinavia, Holland, that area. And the Romans were actually deep into Europe already before the Churban Bayesheni. As a matter of fact, in the middle of the first century, before the Churban Bayesheni, which happened in the year 70 of the current calculations, the Vespasian himself was actually a general in in the European lands, and it was called Gaul at the time, and he called them Germania because they were the term in Latin means yell and shout. They call these people barbarians because they like to yell and shout when they attacked in war, etc., etc. So at that time already, even before the Churban Bayis Sheni, Vespasian, who was the father of Titus, who was a general who destroyed the Beis Hamikdash, he already knew about the Germanic people. So clearly, when this was going on, probably in the second century, sometime in the late first century, the second century, late second century, early third century, right before the Talmud Yerushalmi was codified. So when this was going on, so then there was time enough for them already to know about this Latin word, Germania. So it's not talking about Germany as a country. Clearly, Germany wasn't a country till many, many, many years later, but it was the people of that part of Europe that the Latin term was called. So it must be that one of these barbarian type people, these Gauls, these Germanias, the Teutonic people were taken back to wherever Rabbi Yehuda was, whether it was Eretz Yisrael at the time or it was Egypt, if he was living there, around that area. And he had a servant that was from that race or from that type of people. So by Milvyasa de Rabbi Hila, so he intended to escort Rav Hila, who was leaving the home at the time. So also Kelev Shaita. Then came a crazy dog, a rabid dog. And remember, we call Kelev is really a jackal, so basically it's a rabid jackal. By Isguraya Bay Rabbi Ila, and he wished to attack Rabbi Ila, or maybe Rabbi Hila. Gar Bay Garmani, the German shouted at the dog. Shvake va'azale Basre, and the dog left Rabbi Ila or Rabbi Hila alone and went after the servant instead. The Korea love Etain Adam Tachtecha, and they called after him, thank you so much. Another person said of him. So Shach brought this guy saved him, and now Rabbi Hila was no longer in danger. Bar Kapara Chave Alo Lachada Kare. There was another incident with Bar Kapara. He was entering a certain town. Mialeo Naksha Be'ezbai, and he entered and he hurt his finger. Oil Shema Kale Talio Kare. He entered the town and he heard a child reciting the following verse: Im Bigafa Yavoy Bigafa Yetse. If alone he enters, alone he shall leave. So Amar, he's remarked based on that pasuk, Doime Shaloi Alas Biyadi Ella that I will not accomplish what I needed to do in this town except for the injury alone. Because apparently I come in, I get injured, therefore I'm not going to really accomplish anything in this town. Because if alone he enters, alone he leaves, the way I entered his injury, I'm not going to really accomplish anything positive. So v'chein havele, and that is what happened to him. He didn't really accomplish anything positive. The only thing he could say, my souvenir from entering the town, was an injured finger. A second case now talking about a baskol. Rabbi Yechanan, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Have Mechamedin, Miachmei Afoy de Shmuel. So they desired to travel to see Shmuel's face, to meet Shmuel. Amrina and Nelech Achar Shemina Bas Koil, and they said, let us follow the echo of the Bas Koil. Avron Kumei Sidran, they passed before a study hall. Shamun Khaled de Talya, and they heard the voice of a child, and it sounded like the voice of a child, and it says, Shmuel Mace, and Shmuel died. So Simon, and they took it as a sign, V'chein Havile, and so it was that when they actually went to go visit Shmuel, that Shmuel actually died. So they took a pasuk, the Basco was saying a pasuk from Nach that said that Shmuel died, and apparently this Shmuel also died. Rabbi Yoina, Rabbi Yoisa, Salkun, Bavarka, the Rav Asa, the Havai, Toshis. Rav Yoina and Rav Yoisa went up to visit Rav Acha, who was weak and he was sick. Amina Nelech, Basar Shmiel's Baskal. Let's go after whatever the echo of the Baskal is. Shemina Lekel, Ditach Amra Lechavria, and they heard a voice of a woman saying to her friend, Itfe Baitzina, has the candle been extinguished? Amrullah, her friend answered to her, La Yisrael La Mitzveh Baitzine Hain, the Yisrael, the candle is not extinguished, and so shall the candle of Israel not be extinguished. So they took it as a sign that Rav Acha would recover from his illness, and so he did. Rabbi Yechanan Have Avar Beshuka. They went to the market. Chamachad Mazbein min Elaine Maltoima, and he saw the selling of various types of pastries. Amarle, so Rabbi Yechanan said to him, Min Ile at Chave, from these pastries you make a living? Amarle, and he says, yes. Shavikin va'azalei, so Rabbi Yechanan left and went on his way. Basar Shah Avar Gave, after some time, like an hour, he passed by again. Amarle, so the vendor said to him, Rebbe Tzali Rebbe, pray for me. Demin Deminahi Shatala the Zabin Klum. From the time that you gave me the question, I couldn't sell a thing. Amalei said to him, Shnei Asrach, change your location. Pa'amim, Shishnuya Hashem Gairim. Sometimes changing your name is a help and it changes things for the better. Pa'amim, Shishnuya Hamakab Gairim. And sometimes changing location is also a cause for fortunes to improve. So change your location, your fortunes should improve. So this is two interesting superstitious type of things, changing a name and changing location that the Gemara goes by. Next, Maisa. Train Talmidin min the Rabbi Chanina. There were two Talmid of Rabbi Chanina. Havayin nafgek mitoin kasin. And they went out to go cut wood. Chamon chada astrologus, an astrologus, very, very Greek word. An astrologist saw them. Amri Lane train, min nafkin la chazrin. And these two, once when they go out, they will not return. In other words, they're going to go out and they're going to die. Minafka pagam behind Chadsav, and as then he went out, an elderly man passed them. So Amrlan, he said to them, the elderly man, Zaka and Imi, be charitable to me. The Isli is lost yamin love tamin klum. For several days, I have not tasted anything. They had one loaf of bread. They cut it in half and they gave it to the elderly man. So he ate, and then he prayed for them on their behalf. Amarline, so he said to them, your soul should be preserved on this day. And just as you preserved me on this day. Nafkun b'shalom, b'chazon b'shalom, and indeed they went out in peace and they returned in peace. V'havai taman b'nei enosh tishmu kale, and there were people there who heard what the astrologer said and what he predicted. And they said to them, Loichein Amar, didn't you not say that Elon trained min nafka loy chazron that they're not going to return? So Amar ihacha gavra shaker. If so, then you're a man of sheker. Then you are a man who does not read the astrology correctly. The astrology he shakrid, and your astrology is false. So Afilu Kain, Oslo, and Ubshuta. So nevertheless, the people went and searched for the two students. They wanted to know what the bottom line of the story was. Rashkos, Chachina, they found a snake that was cut in two. When they looked in the piles of these students that went to go wood chopping, they saw half the snake was in one pile of one student's, and half was another student's pile. Amru, so they asked the students, Mativu Avdinu Yoimadin, what good did you do today? They said exactly, they told the astrologer and other people exactly what they did, that they fed the man. So Amr, the astrologer said, Umahu Gavra Yachalavid, what can this man do? What can an astrologer do to predict the future? Delahoin, Diuvan Misvayes Bepalgo Eagle, that the Lord in heaven is placated by a half a loaf. They really deserve to die. They were supposed to get bitten by the snake, obviously, but their charity saved them from death. Tzedakah tasal mavis, the charity saved them from death. Rabbi Chuna Mishta'e Hadein Uvda. Rabbi Chuna related the following: Chad Giur v'Chad astrologus, a convert and astrologer. Chad Zman also by Mifik. One on occasion he wished to go out. Amr Kedai Nafik. He said to him at such an special occasion, do you want to go out? Chazar Mar. Then he retracted and he said, Klom idvaka v'havdei imus kadisha la l'mifresh min eliyomalia. Have I not attached myself to this holy nation for a purpose of abandoning these practices? In other words, the Ger asked the astrologer, is it time to go out? The astrologer said, now is not a good time to go out. So the Ger said, 1 second, I am now became a Jew and I became holy and I attached myself to Hashem and these holy people that I should now believe the word of an astrologer. What's going on? No. So Nifak al Shemei Devari, I should go out in the name of the Creator. Kriv Demichach. He was attacked by a wild animal. He was nearly killed. V'havlei chamra, and he gave up his donkey for the wild animal to save themselves. V'achlei, and the wild animal ate it alone. So man garam lay the lipul. So what caused him to fall to peril? Begoin the har that because he contemplated following the astrologer to begin with. So man garam lay the ish deziv. What caused him to be saved? Begin the shachas bari. So really, he was actually doomed himself to death once he agreed to follow the astrologer. A different time he'd go out and he would get killed. However, since he then said, I'm going to attach myself to Hashem, that's what saved him. He was able to give his donkey instead and ended up saving his life. Rabbi Levi says, Kol hamenachesh, anyone who practices divination, soifai lavai alav, will ultimately suffer by it. Umatam, and what's the reason? Ki loy nachash b'Yaakov, because it says that there should be no nachash, there should be no divination by Yaakov. Ki loy, and it says loy lamed aleph, and now it's saying loy lamed vav, to him nachash, because to him will be divination. If you believe in divination, then you'll get divination. So therefore, it should not be divination, so you won't have divination. So if you don't believe in divination, great. If you do believe in divination, then and you go and you violate the loy nachash, then it'll be lamed vav, loy to him nachash, divination. It's interesting to note the word nachash because nachash is obviously the nachash. There's two famous nachashim. One nachash is that spoke to Chava in Gan Eden, and there was another nachash that Hashem showed to Moshe Rabbeinu when he was on Har Sinai as an ois that he was going to be with him, and Moshe Rabbeinu was going to take out the Jewish people. And of course, I think then, of course, it wasn't mentioned by name, but then it was mentioned in reference. The Nachash later on, they were being attacked by snakes on the way coming back to Eretz Yisrael at the end of the 40 years, and Moshe Rabbeinu put the Nachash onto a staff. So that's really three types of Nachash. And Nachash, the snake, is specifically used because of the word Nachash, divination. All these three instances where Chava was talked to, where Moshe Rabbeinu was given a sign, and where he gave the sign to heal them, they're all divination. And that's why the Torah uses the word Nachash. Amar Rav Acha Bar Zeira. Rav Acha Bar Zeira says, Call me she'enai menachesh. Anyone who's not practiced divination, Mechitzasai lifnim malchei sharis. His realm will be within the ministering angels. Umatamu, and what's the reason? Because it says Ke'es Yamru Liakov Yisrael Ma Pa'al Ace in the beginning of the pasuk, at the end of the pasuk, after it says there should be Loy Nachash Yaakov, it ends up saying at the time that it was said to Yaakov to Israel, what has Hashem done? So therefore, if you don't follow in the divination, you can follow exactly what Hashem has done for you. Hashem will be there for you. Amar Bar Chanina Berei Derav Avua, that Chatzi Yamav Shel Olam, half the days of the world until either Mashiach or until Olam Haba, there's a dispute about exactly what happens. Either the Moisa Mashiach come at the year 6000, and then Olam Haba is sometime later. Some say that Olam Haba and Moisa Mashiach are some sort of intertwined, but really most authorities fall out that at the end of the days, there's going to be a Mashiach. And the Moisa Mashiach is going to be just like these days, except that the Koli Haaretz Yidei Hashem. Everyone's going to know about Hashem. And there's going to be peace in Eretz Yisrael. And there's going to be peace in the world. And the swords, like we mentioned a couple of dafim ago, will be ground into plowshares. And the spears will be ground into spades, all to do farm work. That's the Moisa Mashiach. Then there will be time of Olam Haba afterwards, where there'll be Tchias HaMeisim, and there'll be the ultimate reward for whatever a person did in this world, etc., etc. So we're talking about half the days of the world. Most likely, it's just talking about until Mashiach comes, not until the end of the days when Mashiach has done its part, and then the world will be destroyed. It'll be Olam Haba, and then it'll start over again. Half the days are when. Russia, I made when that Russia stood up. Who's that washed Russia? So Mepharshim say it was probably Bilam, because he's the one in the Torah, because Mataimo says Yaakov Yisrael Mapoil El, that at the time this was done, it will be said to Yaakov in Israel, what has he done? So this is what they attribute to to Bilam. So if it is Bilam, so then Bilam was in the year 2004 86 from creation. And if you do by twice, it's 4972, which comes out, that's a Jewish year, which comes out to the year 1212 or 1213, depending on the Yerushalmi or the Bavli, how you count. That's how it comes out in the year 1212. Clearly, we're sitting here in 2024, the Common Era, and we don't see Mashiach. But it is possible because the prophecies of Mashiach talk about a very long war of Gog and Magog. And in that situation, with Gog and Magog and that long war, 1212 was well within the time when the Crusades happened in 1096 and 1096 and on. So we really had from 1096, 1,000 years, let's say, because it's a Yom could be 1,000 years. Yom could be from 1096, 1,000 years to 2096. And 2096 is coming up. 1212 is within that. So it could be that the Tzipias Yeshua already have started coming throughout the Middle Ages, the change of the Catholic Church, the splintering into different parts, the fact that the rise of the Muslims, the Holocaust, etc., whatever else has gone through. Okay. 1212, by the way, if I may, is also the Enlightenment period. Because what was the 11th, 12th, 13th century? That you had the Goyne of Germany, you had Rashi, you had Ramban, you had Rambam, you had the Maharil, you had so many unbelievable personalities coming out in the 1100s, 1200s, 1300s. So to say that was half that the now Mashiach started to come from this unbelievable a spread of Torah and light that came out of Europe at that time, and it's not to mention the Italian, the Rif, the Italian scholars, the Rif, the Barbanel, the Avud Raham, etc., the Ibn Ezra, and go on. So really, the 1200s is a light and spark. And if I could say one little thing that we're going to talk about in just a second. It's also about the same time the Zohar was published. The Zohar was made famous right about then. Whoever we want to attribute the Zohar to, a lot of people want to attribute to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Some attribute it to someone else, etc. We're not going to get into that debate. But the point is, right around this time is also when that was publicized. Okay. So it's an interesting date to choose. If, again, but it doesn't say in the Gemara that it was Balaam. This is just what the commentaries say, that this Russia was Balaam. It could be really, maybe halfway, you want to say, could have been Nebuchadnezzar. It could have been Haman. Clearly, if it was Antiochus or Titus or Vespasian, that would actually push Mashiach to the past 6,000. So we don't want to say those because that would push Mashiach a little bit too far. But there are other Rishayim that it's possibly. The Gemara doesn't say which Russia. So we don't know. We don't know which Russia this is talking about. Maybe we'll think about it and we'll try to find a calculation of which Russia comes out exactly halfway through the Jewish calendar that we are now. And it should be pleased that the Mashiach will come. Meher Meinu Amen. I'm Rabbi Yermi Ben Elazar, that Asida, Bas Kaliyais, B'may Tzetzes, Bahale, Tzadikim, V'Imeres, a heavenly voice is destined to resound in the tents and righteous, saying, Call me, Shapa'al, Im El Yavai V'itan Scharai. Whoever is told with Hashem shall come and receive his reward. Rabbi Berachia B'Shem Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana, Rabbi Yachim B'Shem Rabbi Bar Kahana, Asa HaKadosh Baruch Hu, La'asais Mechitzassan Shal Tzdikim Lifnei Mechitzassan Shal Malchei Asharis. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu will come. He's destined to make a realm of the righteous that are much closer to him, the realm than the ministering angels. U'Malchei Asharis, the ministering angels, Shailanei Soiverim Lahem. They're going to ask, why are they closer? Amaleni say to them, Mapal Kale. What Hashem's done? What has Hashem done? Ma'haira lahem hakadosh baruch hu. What has Only One done? What has He taught you? He taught them. They toiled. They worked. They earned it. Now, end of the daf. Amar Rabbi Levi Bar Chusya. Rabbi Levi Bar Chusya said, "V'loi kvar asa kain ba'olam hazeh." Has not already occurred in this world. So Hadahu Dechsev, because it says Ane Nebuchadnezzar Amar, that Nebuchadnezzar exclaimed that Ha Ana Chaze Gvurin Arba Sharin. Behold, I put in 3 people in the fire, and now I see 4, they're unbound. Mahalchin Bigai Nura, and they're walking amongst the fire. The Chavala Isan behind, and I don't see any wound among them. So Matam Leimer, what is teaching us? The Chavala Isan behind, there's no wound come to them. Al Malami teacher Shehu Sarisim Vizrapi. They were eunuchs, and they were healed. Vrave de Kadmaisa ein Ksivkan, but it doesn't say in the first appearance, Ella Brave di Vervia. It says the 4th, and who was the 4th? The 4th was, we're going to see Bar Elikin, an angel. So hein hayu michavshin lefanov esor. They were actually walking before the angel, and they were knocking at the fire. So we see that the merit of people is even better than the angel. The 4th one was the angel. The first 3 that he saw were humans, and they were the ones that were walking in front of the angel, knocking at the fire. So therefore, humans we put in front of the angel, people who toiled in Torah. Demei Levar Yahalin, that ends off over there by Nebuchadnezzar. He says, who's the 4th one? He says, it must have been the creation of God. Now, Bar Lahalin, because the creation of God, because it's speaking in Hebrew. If it was Aramaic, Bar Lahalin would mean the Son of God, which is why Baruch Shemay is so controversial in a way, because Baruch Shemay is a tefillah. We talk about how I believe in Hashem. However, we do mention a Bar Elikim. I believe in Hashem, but I don't believe in any ministry angels. I don't believe in Bar Elikim. Bar Elikim in Aramaic, which Baruch Shemay is, means Son of God. So it was written, whether it was written later on in the 1200s, certainly, but if it was even written by Yeshua Bar Yochai in the 2nd century, it was known at that time that there was someone who claimed to be the Son of God, who was the precipice of others creating a whole new religion in that person's name and claiming that person was Son of God. It is inappropriate, some would say, in a shul, especially when the Torah is coming out, to say, I believe in Hashem, but I don't believe what the Catholics believe in. Why are you mentioning what the Catholics believe? Leave it out. There's no reason to even say it. There's no reason to mention whatsoever what anyone else believes. Leave that out. The only thing you have to say is, I believe in Hashem, ein oid levadoi. That's sufficient. Why the tefillah decided to put it in specifically to mention a Bar Elikin, what the Catholics believe. Something to say, oh no, it means the same thing Bar Elikin over here, it means angels. But here is Hebrew and there's Aramaic. Bar Elikin in Hebrew means angels because it's the creation of Hashem. Bar Elikin in Aramaic means the son of Hashem. We're going to see over here. As a matter of fact, even though it's in Hebrew, we're talking in Jake. It's going to ask about the Bar Elikin. How could he possibly think that angels are the son of Hashem? Therefore, that's how Baruch Shemay is controversial. All right, I leave it up to Rabbanan greater than me. So Amar Rabbi Reuven. Rabbi Reuven says, based on this, at that moment, an angel came down, and he slapped the Rasha, the Nebuchadnezzar, on his mouth. Which is why I think the Rasha talking about could have been Nebuchadnezzar the whole time. This is the Nebuchadnezzar. Why is talking about Bilam? It might be talking about Nebuchadnezzar the whole time. If it's talking about Nebuchadnezzar, then it makes sense. Exactly the halfway point of the days is around 6,000. So Amar Lei, so the angel said to him, take if Milach Bar Islay. That to correct your words, does God have a son? So that is a slap in the face to future Catholics, Christians. It's also a slap in the face of Nebuchadnezzar. Angels aren't the son of Hashem. Hashem cannot have a son. God cannot have a son. There is no son of God.